Hello, I'm Phil Croshaw, and in this episode of Passions, we welcome Spencer Phillips to the show. Here we go. Hello, and a very warm welcome to this episode of Passions. And I'm so delighted today to be joined by a good friend of mine, actually. We've known each other quite some time. We were just talking a minute ago. We know where some of the bodies are buried. We've known each other that long now. And that gentleman is by the name of Spencer Phillips. And when I was planning this channel, which is probably most of you know now if you've watched the introduction video, this channel is all about passions and about people's passions, what drives them, where do they get them from, where did they come from, are there ways of monetizing them, or is it just about a hobby or a deep passion that you just enjoy doing? And when I first came up with this concept and idea, probably the very first name on the list, I'm not told him this, but the very first name on the list was definitely Spencer Phillips. And the reason for that is Spencer is naturally passionate about a lot of things. And he's naturally infectious. He's very humble, so I know he's embarrassed at this point, but he's naturally infectious, and you can't help but want to go on the journey with him. So today we're going to talk about one particular general area of passions where he really, really makes a difference. And I've seen this up close and personal. So easy for me to say, up close and personal. And that's all his charity activity, which is a very broad umbrella way of talking about some of the key areas that he's involved in, albeit I know we could do 6 other shows in some of the other areas he's passionate about. But Spencer, thanks ever so much for joining me today at the Passions Show.
Thank you. Great to see you, Phil. Are you keeping well? Are you good up there?
Yeah, I'm keeping well. I know you're down in Kent, which is all the posh part of the country at the moment. and very hard to argue when I'm in Manchester, where everybody's getting locked down here, there and everywhere. And Boris Johnson and Andy Burnham, the mayor, are having fisticuff fights in the street about who can and can't open.
I was in Blackpool on Friday and Saturday of the week just gone. And Blackpool has become my adopted hometown, as you know, with the Showtown project that I'm privileged enough to work with. So it was great to be back up north, and everyone was doing well. Everyone was behaving themselves and were really trying to keep things going. They were going to the pubs and the bars and the restaurants, but in the right way. The tower was open and the circus was open, and everyone was trying to keep as much normal life going as possible. It was a real privilege to see it.
Oh, well, that's really great to hear, actually. And that's really wonderful. So, okay, so let's just start off with the obvious question. When it comes to charities, what exactly is your passion?
Wow, well, I guess it all started by accident. I fell in love with gorillas when I was 4 years old. I got taken to London Zoo by my parents, and Guy the gorilla, the legendary, one of the most famous gorillas in the world, was there. And I called his name and he looked at me. And I've been hooked on gorillas ever since. And indeed, we live in Kent because of gorillas. My wife and her company had a client down in Kent, and we used to stay down in Kent. And the legendary John Aspinall had Howlett's and Port Lim in Kent. And so we'd stay down in Hythe, and I would say, can we go and see the gorillas? And I'd sit outside the gorilla enclosure like a slightly strange person and just be happy just to be that near them. And then the real world, or my real world, has always been the entertainment industry, as you know, the live sector. And Mel Brooks brought the producers over to London, and I was privileged enough to host on opening night clients, and a long-standing friend was there, and he said, "Can I bring a friend?" And we said, "Yeah, sure." And this wonderful man called Robert Boutwood, who you've met, showed up. And he said, "Hello, my name's Robert. How are you?" I'm very well. I said, what do you do? And he went, I'm the fundraising director for Port Lim and Howlett's. I've worked with John for 40 years. And I've moved to Kent because of your gorillas. I hang out, I love gorillas. And he went, "Come for tea tomorrow afternoon." And I did. And that was the first charity that I got involved with. Obviously, saving and protecting the Western and Lowland mountain gorillas. And I've been privileged enough to go out to Congo and been part of the release programs of putting the gorillas back into the wild. And that was a mad adventure on itself, going into Congo. And that was how we started raising money. So we threw amazing parties and balls, and we created the first prepaid debit card in the UK for charity. We did wonderful opening nights with Cameron McIntosh when Oliver was in town. And it was all about raising money for species. And I guess that's where it started. And the whole thing steamrolled from there.
And can you put your finger on what it is about? Because what I find interesting is I know you've got this huge passion for animals, and you can talk about the cheetahs in particular in a minute as well. But obviously, is it about making a difference? What is it? 'Cause this is one of the things I'm asking people as I'm on this journey of discovery. Because it's a question I've been asking myself. Where does the passion come from? Can you identify what it is about the charity sector and or the animals that basically floats your boat?
You can make a difference, and that's important. And how I've ended up working with and so many different charities in a very focused way is that you genuinely can make a difference, and you can see the outcomes of the difference you make. It's no different to business. Charities should be run as businesses. That's the most important thing. Because you're taking money from people and telling them that it's going somewhere. So it's a business. So you've got to be focused on outcomes. But, you can make so much magic happen. And I look at ranging from meeting the man whose car is over my shoulder, the legendary John Surtees, a dear friend. And I met John because I got involved with Demelza House Children's Hospice, and was privileged enough to be chairman of their fundraising and development board. And I met John because Demelza were looking at how do they raise money. And so A1GP came into life, which was the World Cup of Motorsport, an alternative series to Formula One. John was team principal of Team GBR. I phoned up Jonathan Palmer, who owns Brands Hatch, and said, could we host an event on the eve of A1GP coming to Brands Hatch? And Jonathan graciously said yes. And so I then met John Surtees, and we raised much money for Demelza House. John attended the events. We had all of the drivers at the events, unheard of, benchmark events for both motorsport and charity. And I was privileged enough to meet Henry, his son, who we tragically lost in a freak motor racing accident at Brands Hatch. And John then formed the Henry Surtees Foundation in his honour. And I was ultimately privileged with John's great words when he said, will you come and join the party? And he asked me to be an ambassador for Henry's charity. And it was a party. We raised money for the air ambulance and got bloods to be carried on the air ambulance, and making road accidents safer and being able to provide services there. And we did that, and that's how it's all interconnected. So it's a passion. You meet passionate people from all walks of life who can enable you to make a difference. And it's almost like having a box of tricks. It's being able to say, that organization, that business wants to help children in Africa, that children wants to help, say, that charity wants to be able to reach a business that can help them with data, because data will protect something, enable them to raise more money. And so whoever you meet is an opportunity to put people together and make things happen.
Well, one of the things that I find quite interesting about this whole topic as well is the difference between interests and passions. Do you think there is a difference between an interest and a passion, or not?
I think a passion is something that moves you. I think you can be interested in lots of things. A passion is a generator for action for me. My dear friend Steve Bloom, one of the greatest wildlife photographers in the world, has once said that once you've looked into a gorilla's eyes, your life will never be the same again. And he's true. You know, it's very true. And it's the same with the cats. I'm privileged enough to be chairman of the Fundraising Development Board for the Big Cat Sanctuary. I'm overseas ambassador for the Cheetah Conservation Fund. A passion moves you. A passion takes you from paying £10 a month into a charity through to wanting to ride the plane to Congo because you're going to release some gorillas out there. Or a passion takes you from to actually attending an event when we can attend events. Or it takes you to that next level, and that's where differences get made. And not everyone's privileged enough to be able to be in that situation or wants to be in that situation. But if you're passionate about it, it makes a difference.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Right, I'm going to put you right on the spot now. Just thought of this now. Okay, you have to choose one passion charity. You've got to do it. It's the law. Boris Johnson has announced it as part of the COVID-19 rules and regulations of the UK.
Yeah.
Or top three, if you like, in order.
I would say as a cause, it would be the animal charities, animal conservation on the planet. They were all here in one shape or form or another before us. They're far more intelligent than us. The vast majority of animal species on the planet, their only enemy is man. And we've done a really rubbish job at looking after our fellow citizens on this planet. So that's where I guess I'm most passionate and most driven. And that also is because when you start on that journey, you realize then that you've got to look after the people. We're all part of this one. We've all got to rub along together. So that exposes you then to dealing with education programs in Namibia and Somaliland, as we do with Cheetah Conservation Fund. Foundation. It means that you are working with schools in the United Kingdom to teach them about the environment. You know, I was privileged enough to host Sir David Attenborough's birthday a number of years ago at the Savoy. And you've got that legend there of Sir David. And his message is still there now. You know, we've got to save ourselves, because if we don't, we're all heading on that disastrous route. But when you see a majestic animal, one of our cousins, the silverback, in the wild, looking after his family, not bothering you at all, and you realize you've got a big responsibility and a passion to save him, as we have contributed to do. I'm privileged enough to be a trustee at the Gorilla Organisation. And when I rocked up at the Gorilla Organisation 10 years ago, full of bright ideas everyone should listen to, and Gillian Miller and Ian Redmond graciously took me on. We had the Great Gorilla Run, and about 1,000 people could run dressed as gorillas. It went around the world. They did these all over the world. And at that time, more people were running the Great Gorilla Run than there were mountain gorillas left on the planet. And during my tenure there, nothing to do with me, I'm just an enthusiastic amateur, but you've seen that the gorilla population now, the mountain gorillas, there are more mountain gorillas than there are runners. So it shows that through passion, through dressing up as a gorilla and running around London, and that's a passion to do that and raise money and promote yourself doing it, you know, you've now ensured that there are more gorillas on the planet than there were when we started. So that shows how you can make a difference. Every one of us can make a difference.
Yeah, and hallelujah to that. Do you think that obviously with the last few months have been quite horrific in different ways and at different levels for different people? Obviously, some have had it a relatively what we call an easier COVID, and some have had a nightmare COVID, and everything in between. There's a lot of talk, obviously, just before all this kicked off. Is it Greta Thunberg? Is it Greta?
Greta Thunberg, yeah.
Yeah. And she was becoming quite high profile. Do you think that one of the byproducts or slight upsides of what's happened with COVID is that it's basically got people off the manic hamster wheel to the point where maybe they've got a little bit more time to think and a little bit more time to consider and a little bit more time, say, even to watch things like the David Attenborough programs? Is that the case, or is that too optimistic?
No, I think Greta did an amazing thing because she reached a new generation. I'm a governor at our local primary school, and the 7 and 8 year olds there are doing eco environment work now, and they know more about it than I ever will. Recycling and everything else. And their eco hero is Sir David. Okay, one little boy even has a life-size cutout of Sir David at home. He's that enthralled by what he's learned, and our generation learned all we know about the world from Sir David. We saw him sit with gorillas, and we saw him take on the blue planet, and we saw him go to the polar ice caps. We've learned, and someone like Jacques Cousteau, who opened up the planet to us, the underwater world. And Greta reached that new generation of people, young people, and she did it in a way where she was saying, wake up, because what the mess you've made of all this is what I'm left with.
Yeah.
So I think that people did start to listen, and different generations of people started to listen. The hard thing, I think, is it rather like COVID news. If you sit and watch the news for half an hour, most people feel overwhelmed. I just don't understand. It's too much, and it's all negative. And I think that from the charity sector, what we've got to do is keep getting the message out there, but in palatable ways that people understand, and focusing on the good news stories as well, which there are a lot of good news stories. And I think you've got to cut through the noise of your inbox being full of people telling you why you should give them money or how. There's a responsibility of the charity sector to be engaging with their audience and new audiences in a way that they understand, that is palatable, to encourage them to take action.
Do you think they've got no choice now to adapt in that way? Because they almost have to be better at it, better at marketing, better at communicating, better at engaging. Whereas perhaps in the past they could, I don't want to, belittle it, but it's a big exaggeration, but they could just rattle the tin outside Tesco to a point. Has it become tougher, I suppose, is the question, to raise money for charity, especially in current times?
Well, it doesn't, causes don't go away, and there are more causes than ever. I'm involved with St. Martin's in the Field. I chair through their London Key Fund, and homelessness isn't going away. It was amazing when during the first lockdown, when homeless people were taken from the streets and given accommodation. We are a first world country. It's obscene that we have homelessness. Of course it is. Look at the food bank situation. We live in Kent. Food banks were 80% increase in turnover of people needing to use them. That, if you look at who uses a food bank, those people are our people. They're us. They're people that now suddenly, for whatever reason, can't afford to shop. You're 3 paydays away from that, and that's something that Springsteen has done in food banks in America. When the Vietnam vets all came home and they had no money, and no one was interested in you being a Vietnam vet, you were ignored on the streets because people were so ashamed of that war. and food banks are still with us in first world countries and are through the roof. So the causes and the beliefs of what we need to do is more than ever. And charities do have a huge responsibility of communication, of being able to responsibly communicate with people, and then equally engage with their consumer bases and their donators so that they can see where the money goes. For me, it's all about outcomes. Where does that money go? How is it being used? And then telling people what you're doing with it. Let the people know that thank you for your £5, your £10, your donation, your corporate support, because this is what we've done with it. And isn't that a good news story? And charities are trying really hard to do that, and are working so hard to engage in a world that's changed, because everyone's had to adopt social media and video and all that. And let's not forget, charities are not profit-making organizations. So monies to invest in new technologies and new ways of communicating, that's tough, because they've got to balance out how much it costs to run the organization with how much they can give to the people that need their support. So it's tough for charities. And let's not forget, a lot of charities have lost a quarter of their income at least over, if not more, over lockdown. And that probably is an income that's going to come back in the short term, because everybody's down and got less money. So they're having to work even harder with less income.
Is that the same as well? Because obviously quite often people will support charities through direct debits and stuff. And is it fair to say that if they cancel their direct debit because they go through their statement, like when things are tough, people tend to go through the statements a little bit more and go, £8.99? What's that? I've been paying that 3 years and I've no idea what it is. When people go through that and then they cancel that direct debit, I guess it's really hard then to get that person back, is it?
Yeah. And back to running your charity like a business, you'd know when you'd lost a business customer. So you need to be aware of where, if you're losing the donator, and how do you communicate back? Is it just, we're sorry to see you go? Or is it, how do I get that person back and re-engaged? It's tough, because your charities are having to work twice as hard to stand still. And yeah, people did go through their statements and cancel their direct debits. And that's a real fact of life, in the same way that people have not been donating one-off donations as much. Corporates haven't got either the people to give you, because the people aren't physically in an office and they can't come to where you do to work to do something, or they don't have the corporate donation. It's really tough. I think what we've all got to do is we've all got to keep talking. And one of my benchmark partnerships is DS Techeetah with the Formula E champions, with the Big Cat Sanctuary, because we've kept that spinning, we've kept the messaging going out, we've kept the focus on the DS Techeetah and an environmental sport are supporting the work of Big Cats and the work that they're doing in the field, and that's supporting people and economically, as well as the cats, and keeping them healthy and well, both in the UK and overseas. So that's been a real benchmark, and they've been fantastic. Mark Preston and Keith Smout and the team there in going, what can we do? How do we keep this spinning? We're world champions. What can we do to keep the messaging going out there, keeping people engaged, and looking at new ways to bring income in? Is that through merchandise? Is that through membership? Is that through donations? How do we do that? So real creative thinking. We're in not their first primary concern. Their concern is running racing cars. But it's been good, and I think the corporate world generally, with all the charities I work with, have kept trying to do that. How can they haven't switched the tap off. They've said, how can we keep working with you? And then that's when we all sit down and try and be a bit creative and a bit mad, and have some fun as well. In how can we keep the messaging fun as well, to keep the money coming in?
strongly suspect that anybody watching this or listening to it on the podcast platform right now is thinking, is Spencer Phillips going to bring out a book about time management? Because, I mean, I know that you've probably mentioned half, maybe less than half of what you're involved in the last 15 minutes.
It's the day job as well.
Yeah, I just don't know how you do it. I really don't know how you do it, mate. One of the things we look into on this channel, in terms of the whole passions thing, is about monetizing passions. I don't like that. Monetizing is an awful word, but it's basically just earning some revenue from your passion, which, of course, as everybody generally recognizes, if you can make a decent living out of doing your passion, then you're not really working at all. So it's the holy grail, I suppose, to a point, isn't it? What do you think about that? Is it you obviously do a lot of your charity work free, gratis, or unpaid? How has it helped you, what you might call on the periphery, at a business level, based on the fact that you've still got to live, you've still got to keep the lights on, you've still got to feed those ducks outside your front door, and I know all about the ducks, of course. So how do you go about that, and has it been a help to you in terms of work and business?
Basically, yeah, you're quite right. You don't. I felt very privileged to have worked with the charities I have worked with, helped, assisted with, or guided. And the reward there has been positions as chairman, let's just say, or ambassador for those. And I've met the most wonderful people that we've been on that journey with. So it's never been about somebody writing a check out for that advice. But how it certainly has helped me in my business career, because your business profile shows that you're well-rounded and can lead and assist leaders of organizations to achieve. And we've achieved some pretty big numbers with a lot of the charities over the years in terms of income and numbers of patrons, supporters. And then you meet very, very interesting people who do pay you money. Because it may be that you're in a business meeting and you get talking about how they have this ambition to save a nation, save a people, save a planet, save a whatever, and you make that introduction to an organization, and from that they will say, but our organization needs you to come in and help us do a whole raft of other stuff, so which we'll pay you for that, so come and do that with us. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it's been a secondary door opening opportunity to business ventures. A lot of those very entrepreneurial, a lot of those, that have come late to the party in terms of new ideas and what have you, in terms of where the future of the world might go. So it's opened doors that way, rather than me billing organizations for my time. Comes back to a passion. I think ultimately, if you're passionate about something, would you do it for free? There's a lot of people at the moment who can't work. Look at the entertainment industry, and it's incalculable how much those people have done for free, streaming and podcasts, and just kept performing because they're so passionate about it. And I guess the charity sector is pretty much the same for a lot of people. We're passionate about our causes, so you work in that. And as I say, my business, it's been interesting, the people I've met and where it's gone with those people in terms of a business sense as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. And if you don't mind me saying so, I think one of the things that I've noticed about you over many years as well is that you are a big giver. I told you about this channel just in passing and said, would love to have you on it. But then before I know it, then I'm very grateful. So all of a sudden, I've got you sending out emails and people coming back saying, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And all of a sudden I'm thinking, right, I'm going to have to make a lot more time for this channel over the next 3 months but that's you. That strikes me as you. And is that partly because it's just in your nature, which I'm sure it is, but is there any philosophy that says if you give, ultimately, in inverted commas, the universe will give something back?
I think on a number of levels, you do have to put something back if you are lucky enough to be in a position where you can. There's a bit of duty to be done there. It doesn't hurt to help someone along the way, because you know what, you might need some help yourself at some point. But I mean, I think also I've been lucky enough over my career to meet some fantastic guys and girls who are in the band, as I always say. And they're all friends. And my business success has come from meeting people and forming very strong, long-lasting relationships. And so when you come to me with an idea such as this, I'm very privileged to be able to say, I know some really interesting people who are far more talented than me. I'm the least talented person I know, but I know a lot of talented people out there. And do you know what? They're good people, and they would come on and talk to you about this, or how they've achieved what they've achieved, or what they're passionate about. And I'm really lucky. I get to hang out in fast cars in motorsport, and I get to help the gorillas, and I get to help the big cats, and I can go down and I can hang out with the big cats, and I get to work in the entertainment industry and put on amazing shows. Hey, you know, what's there not to be really positive about, and you know, feel a little bit grateful about? And so, and this is fun, you know. It's I don't really consider this work. This is great to have a chat with a mate and talk about some nice fun things, and you give me a platform to do it. So you know, this is this, you can't call this a career at the end of the day. It's fun.
My granddad was down the pit for 15 hours a day, so I guess you can't really compare it with that, can you? But I think it is. What's interesting? Sorry, what's interesting for me though about it, as I've heard you say this a lot over the years, and you always say I'm very lucky too, but I don't see it like that. I think I see it that I've watched and been side by your side at certain times, and through social media when we've been not been as involved, as close up as we were, and I just see you making decisions, making it happen for yourself, networking like crazy, doing what it takes to get what you want. Nobody's come along. I sound like your counsellor here, don't I? Nobody's come along and like Mr. Bean and dropped all this on you. That's not luck. You've worked hard for it.
Yeah, but I think, you know, my wife always says that Spencer is the living embodiment that success is 90% confidence. And you know, as you know, she's the talented one in our family. She's got a proper job and everything. And I think she's probably right. I think I go in with an optimistic view, and hopefully people come along on the journey. But I'm also the guy that has traditionally delivered for those people. So the charity world is a really good example of, there's no end of people you can find to talk to and bring to the party, but they've got to get something out of it. They've got to find out, you know, are you ticking their goals and their boxes? And it might be that their dream is to meet Ian Redmond, the world's greatest living gorilla expert. And yeah, I can make that happen. Or it might be that they want something, they want a cheetah experience of some kind in Namibia. That's all possible. But you know what? They also want something out of that, to be able to give something, to be able to tick their boxes, to be able to help them with what they need to do. So you always got to make sure that you balance that out with it, making it real for them, that they've had the best experience, so that they can give, and that they can give something back to the organization. But you've just got to be, you know, you've got to have some fun with it as well. And I've been very privileged to know amazing people. We've spoken about John Surtees, and, you know, I was privileged enough to work for Andrew Lloyd Webber, and those types of people. And you learn from those people, and you see what success is and how they've driven their passions to success. And hopefully you learn something from them to keep it going. But I remember there's that great Bob Dylan quote. One of my I remember putting Bob Dylan when he played the Palladium. That was a big tick point for many people, signing Bob Dylan to play the Palladium when he came in. And Bob Dylan had that great quote that it said, "Be nice to everybody because you don't know what kind of day they've had."
Yeah, that is fantastic. I love that quote. I'm pinching that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that
I love that.
I don't think that's a bad thing to live by. Just going with an optimistic attitude, because often, especially in the charity world, you're asking for something. And I'm lucky that people still take my calls, because invariably it is, can I have, or would you? And I'm lucky that I know a lot of really, really successful, good people that will still give. And that's what I found from, working in the entertainment industry. The bigger the star, the nicer the person. There's something to be from that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Right. Okay. Well, we're run out of time, but obviously, as you know, I could be going on with you for another 17 hours, but YouTube will probably blow up. So last thing then, I suppose, is, and it's a tricky one, and you've kind of covered it in a way, but what top tip might you give? Because you're old now.
You're very old.
You're not as old as me, but you're not far off.
As well,
Yeah, but I've got a bald head, you see. It doesn't go grey.
Hey.
So
we've all got a talent.
Yeah, exactly. So based on your vast experience, what tip or bit of advice would you give to somebody about, making more of the passion that they've got in their life, whether that's money or whether that's time? What would you advise them to do?
Do something with it. You can write a book that no one reads. You can write songs that no one hears. It doesn't matter. Your passion, maybe you want to be the world's greatest actor, but you're never going to go beyond amateur dramatics, because that might just not be possible. I remember George Michael talking when he was saying that, if Wham had only ever just been the best local band, that was great. You start off with, like, we're just the best local band. Fantastic. And I can remember when Springsteen came off the 85 rather, Born in the USA tour, and did a big interview with the band, and they said to Steve Van Zandt, his legendary right-hand man, what's changed? And he went, what do you mean what's changed? We've been playing bars for 20 years. What was going to change? And I think, just doing something with your passion, wherever it takes you, and to whatever level, it doesn't matter. You're going to feel better that you've done something with it. Just don't have any regrets that you didn't make that phone call. And charity is a good thing. If you want to be involved with a charity, phone them up and see if you can volunteer. That's the starting point. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. But you may find yourself, you always wanted to work with animals, and you go and clean out cages at your local animal sanctuary. Then you're fulfilling your passion, you're starting it, and then who knows where it can go from there. Dreams still do come true.
Yeah, it's like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I've always found that, all the people I've interviewed, as you know, over many years, some of which pretty high profile people. And I always just found, just ask, be polite, and just ask. And you'll get yes, no, or maybe. It's pretty much one of the three, but if you're respectful, and you're respectful of their time, then if you ask enough people, like you said, there's a lot of very nice people around. And actually, what I think is interesting about this, and it possibly could be the same with this channel, is that people do have a real desire to tell their story. They've been on a journey. They've met some great people. They've suffered. They've really suffered. They had challenges. They got made redundant when they were 17 and thought they would never work again, and all the millions of different stories that occur. And what I found is they're quite keen on the idea, almost maybe cathartic, I don't know, to actually just tell their story and share it with people.
I couldn't have had my career now if I was starting out again, because the world's a different place. And things like this, I think you're right. There are opportunities like this. Perhaps it helps you put your own life in a little bit of making sense. How did I get here? How can I be the guy that can be involved with the Big Cat Sanctuary and be planning on how we're going to keep cheetahs and jaguars and and all manner of other animals on the planet. How did that happen? You don't really think about it day to day. You know, it's just, well, we're doing this today. And that's great. And that's like the Showtown project for me in Blackpool. You know, yeah, the London Palladium, the most famous theatre in the world. I was privileged enough to put some of the world's biggest stars into that amazing theatre. And now I'm working on the Showtown project in Blackpool. You know, the home of entertainment, Blackpool, Britain's first seaside resort. You had two choices when you played England. If you were going to make it, you were either going to play Blackpool or hopefully London. They were the centres, the epicentres of the entertainment world. Frank Sinatra, when he got out of the car, said, "I could be mayor of this town." And you look at that, and that's a whole regeneration now going on, and Blackpool being put back at the very centre of the entertainment industry. And I remember when I had my interview for the role of chairman, and I hadn't done an interview for a while, so that was a bit scary. And I remember I didn't know how to finish the interview, because you had 6 minutes where you had to talk about why it should be you. And I look back and I had absolutely no idea how I'd got to this position in life. So I phoned up two mates. I phoned up Bradley Walsh and I phoned up Count Arthur Strong. And I went, "I've got no idea how to finish my presentation, but would you say something nice about Blackpool, because you both love it and know it so well? And will you say something mad about me?" And the videos arrived, or the tapes, or the recordings, because I'm very old now, so I don't know what they should be called. And I played them at my interview to finish up, rather than asking questions. And they summed me up with, Count Arthur got my name wrong, and Bradley said, "He's a nice lad, you'll get used to him." So I think, you know, rather like when Austin Healey said that he'd recommend me for anything on LinkedIn apart from my skills on a rugby pitch. I don't know how I've got here. I don't know how many of my friends think I've got here either, but it's been a hell of a fun journey, and it's been nice to share it with yourself as well, sir.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thanks ever so much, Spencer. Really enjoyed that. I'll put some of the links to the charities underneath here. So that'd be great. If you want to subscribe, please do hit the bell. And if you want notifications, you can do that as well, obviously on YouTube. And you'll just get notifications for each one of these. And I'm planning to do a lot more of these since Spencer chipped in and then started throwing all these amazing people my way. So if you're interested and you want to get notified when we've got another guest on, and I did Experts Online back in 2003, 2004 on the way there, and we got to interview some amazing people, and that was a research about success. And now this is a similar kind of thing. This is a research and finding out about passions and what drives people to do those passions. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Thanks ever so much for your time, mate. I know that time is precious to everybody, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you again soon, maybe in real life, and I can interview you actually next to the gorilla. That would be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be nice. You know, it's an open invitation to you, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you very soon, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks, Spencer. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye for now.